welcome to BizTech on Ghana Web TV with me, Ernestina Sewa Asante. As usual, on BizTech, we serve you some stories that made headlines in the week and an interview a member of the business desk had with an expert. So this week, President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo granted the approval for zero pricing, stabilization and recovery levy to mitigate the impact on increasing fuel prices on consumers. So my colleague Mauli Aholumega had a discussion with petroleum expert Duncan Amoah, and here is the full report.
The National Petroleum Authority recently announced it had been granted approval to remove fuel levies for 2 months. The levies, which are the price stabilization and recovery levy for petrol, diesel and LPG, is expected to cushion consumers for the period as prices of these products have been surging in recent months. To unpack the development, I'll be engaging a petroleum expert on the decision and its impact on consumers. Before I introduce my guest, I'll take a quick break and we'll be right back. This is BizTech on Ghana Web TV. My name is Mauli Aholumega. Welcome back from that break. My guest on this week's edition of BizTech is Duncan Amoah, and he's the Executive Secretary for the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers Ghana. Duncan, welcome to BizTech on Ghana TV. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. Yeah. I pray you good too.
Yeah, I'm doing very well. Yes, many thanks for the time. Yeah, so I just want to pick your initial thoughts on the recent removal of fuel levies.
We've described the removal of the 14-16 pesos price stabilization and recovery levy, one as a good gesture, but again, it is not adequate. It is not enough. It's not something that could bring the kind of relief that Ghanaians are clamoring for. We have, in the meantime, put a memo together for the Finance Ministry to look at a more sustainable way of cushioning Ghanaians in the face of rising costs of fuel at the pumps, and for that matter, international market prices hitting all of us. And so the gesture, in principle, very good. However, impact or the intended outcome or effect, you are probably going to get zero or even negative impact, because in the next 2, 3, 4 days, the pump prices are likely to surge by at least 30 pesos. Once that happens, you would consume the 14 pesos and the 16 pesos that you throw in there. So technically, we'll be back to the same squares or even a worse place. And so we think that the more sustainable thing will be to manage the myriad of taxes on the price build-up. Anything other than this will simply be window dressing the issue and going out to tell Ghanaians that we've reduced fuel prices. I'm already getting calls asking whether the transport operators should not reduce fares. I can assure you, they've taken more of a hit than 14 pesos can recover for. Just between January and October, Ghanaian pump prices have gone up by as much as 1 cedi 80 pesos. Already people are asking transport operators, based on the announced intended 14 peso reduction, between January and October, pump prices have moved from 4 cedi 67 to current 6 cedi 52. That's about 1 cedi 85 pesos difference. So when you are dealing with 1 cedi 85, with the possibility of it going further 30, such that it will cross 2 cedis, and then you get a 14 peso reduction, then people start looking at transport operators. We rather owe them. And so I don't get surprised hearing from their unions that they are even pushing for increases. The reduction levels we are seeing, it's, like I said, gesture is good, but as to whether it will have the kind of impact you want it to have on the Ghanaian economic situation, it wouldn't. Okay. It's woeful.
Yeah. Speaking of impact, I understand Parliament has to come back into the House, sit down before this implementation and removal of the implementation can take place. What are your thoughts on that?
You see, that is law, and it needs to be done. The other part we don't agree with. If you're taking it to Parliament for Parliament to scale down, why would you do for 2 months? If you go through all that process of Parliament scaling down on a tax, and then you say in 2 months you are restoring it, you are better off probably not even doing it at all. However, the more sustainable thing we would want to see Parliament do is to scrap the compendium of taxes that we've saddled the price build-up, one of which I have here, with. You have as many as 13 different tax items, and you wonder if at the time that government is making additional revenue from our crude exports, it wouldn't be a more prudent thing to ease down these taxes, because you inputted these taxes simply for revenue. A lot of them. Government needs money. If you look at the road fund, we need money for roads. Energy debt recovery, we need money to pay off the energy sector debts. Stabilisation and recovery, which you are removing. Special petroleum tax, which is a VAT on the price build-up. Primary distribution for bust. Bust margin also comes. Fuel market margin. You see, there's quite a lot that if we scrutinized properly and went down on some, even if for temporal, periods, we should be able to at least give relief to Ghanaians at this point. And I say this with the revenue debate in mind. We talk of government having a need for revenue. What we're forgetting now is that because we are an oil producing and exporting country, the moment crude moves from $50 to $60, the $10 variation is a gain for Ghana because we are also exporting. Now crude has moved from 50 to 60 to 70 to 80 to above 80, approaching 90. The $20-30 gain is revenue that government is receiving or recording. Just 2-3 weeks ago, the BOG Finance Ministry were out there saying they've made a windfall of $89 million. In cedi equivalent, that's in excess of 500 million Ghana cedis. So if you took out some of these taxes, we should fetch you sometimes 200-300 million for the same period. The government has still made a gain, even on a bad situation where international market prices are inching up by the day. So those who argue that is for revenue and we can't do anything about it, it is that they are just not informed. If it is for revenue purposes, government is raking in excess of $89 million for a quarter due to the same price increment on the international market. Shouldn't you be magnanimous to use 100 or 200 million for these taxes that is also choking the pump prices? We think somebody has to manage the prices. Just throwing in stabilization and recovery of 14 pesos will not do the trick.
Thank you very much, Duncan. So touching on global demand, right now at the moment we are having there's a lot of disruptions on the oil market, and there are also inflation risks as well. What's the COPEC's take on that, and what do you think we should be doing to mitigate this?
As a country, you have nothing that you can reasonably do to influence global fuel prices. Yeah, a very small market. If you're talking of economies like India, China, the US, Europe, and you put Ghana's, contributions to the global basket, you are almost insignificant. So what you do as a price taker is to ensure you manage the effect on the other side. Like I said, if crude was to go to $100, government of Ghana is a gainer because you're also exporting. If it was at $30 and it moves to $50, there's a $20 gain that government of Ghana will receive for our share of oil and oil entitlements. So it is not always negative that prices are going up on the international market. However, because we refuse to manage the impact on our local market, it turns out to be negative to the economy. Whilst government is raking in excess, money, they will still want to collect all the taxes that they enforced even when they were making lower than projected.
So I've been speaking with Duncan Amoah, and he's the Executive Secretary of the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers, and we've been unpacking the recent decision by government to remove the price stabilization and recovery levy for the next 2 months. I'll take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Powers and principalities.
There's so much fire inside me.
Tragedy struck when part of the largest hillside at the kosher rubbish dump collapsed.
It's going to be fun to see how he goes about approaching this game.
Welcome back from our break. I've been speaking with Duncan Amoah, and he's the Executive Secretary of the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers, and we've been unpacking the recent decision by government to remove the price stabilization and recovery levy for 2 months. Duncan, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so next I want us to come to the LPG. I understand the LPG gas, the LPG gas, it's going to be increased. What's your take on that?
You see, when I say we don't have a strategy as a country, these are some of the fall-offs. So for petrol, diesel, because your refinery is not working, basically you are importing almost everything. For gas, Atuabo, your processor, is putting out enough that could suffice for the local market. Yet Atuabo's prices sometimes, if not higher than the imported, is at neck to neck with the imported. So anytime the imported price goes up, Atuabo will also have to go up. No problem. LNG elsewhere comes so cheap simply because before you actually get to your oil production, gas is one of the first things you come across. In the past, we have had to flare, as in let it evaporate into the atmosphere for free. At this point that prices of crude and its allied or associated products is rising, is there a way we can localize what we have here? Every of the oil fields would give you some amount of gas. How much of it are we trapping as a country? How much of it are we processing for local use? We just sit, get caught ball watching, and throw our hands in despair. We do think that the taxes on LPG would also have to go at this point, especially since we are also increasing the cost, as in the cost of processing gas. Would need to do away with some of the taxes. We've held gas prices so neck to neck with other petroleum products, such that it is not attractive even for the poor man to want to switch from charcoal to gas. If we have a strategy that wants all of us in this country to use cleaner energy, I'm sure LPG should be one of the least expensive commodities. Unfortunately, it's become even more expensive. A kilogram now is 7 cedis and beyond. Petrol is hovering at 6.52 for a liter. So the unit cost, LPG, is becoming a problem. The earlier we get a strategy for these things, you cannot have a clean society, a clean country, when a majority of people are still using firewood, charcoal, and all those things. And yet we complain we are dirty. Some of these taxes that we've packed onto gas prices makes it a disincentive for people to switch from their traditional charcoal to LPG. So we are begging of authorities, the same way Stabilisation and others should go off petrol and LPG, they should look at the taxes on LPG and make it pocket friendly so that people can switch. At a current penetration of 22-25%, it means that for every 100 people, 75 of them still rely on charcoal and other alternate sources of fuel. It's not good enough. It is just not good enough. And I always say we are failing to get our strategy right as a country. It's all about money, revenue, money. Now, government wants money, revenue for its developmental projects. But what we forget is that the people also need the revenue, at least to survive and to improve their livelihoods. If the people don't exist, a government won't exist. So when you squeeze everything out of them, you leave them dry, you are only grounding your economy invariably, because the little bits that they could have plowed back to invest or reinvest, you're taking everything, and the people are worse off. And you want the economy to progress. It won't. So sometimes we talk about economic indicators, GDP, inflation, all of that. It doesn't reflect in the people's pockets simply because the cost of fuel in this country is way too high than average wages or incomes that people are paid.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Duncan. So, Duncan, finally, I want to touch on a state-owned institution, BOST. It was recently reported that there was some form of adulterated fuel incident occurring there, and also the Tema Oil Refinery as well, almost a similar incident involving theft. What are your thoughts on that?
You see, we need to fix these institutions. It's good they come out now to report some of these shady dealings. But trust me, there's a lot deeper problem with those two institutions that need fixing, institutional problems. Take a look at BOST. The MD has done a good job exposing a certain cartel that is adulterating product. But at the base of this is another cartel who charges these drivers monies to load. So before you get a load, the drivers will tell you, the car owners will tell you, it's presumed that they have to pay money, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 per load. If you don't stop that practice, the operator or the driver or the car owner will now be forced to also add other chemicals to boost volume so that they can also get some to recover the monies that you've charged them. Again, in the past, you've had managing directors who would simply play to our blind side, adulterate the product or insist the product is adulterated so they could downgrade and sell to their cronies, and make money. So there's all kinds of criminal enterprises that fester within these institutions. Yet you have the BNI, you have the NIB, we call them, Police CID, IOCO. If you put your ears to the ground, just a teeny weeny bit, you would hear so many stories, especially from those from whom those monies are collected. They talk. sometimes. Yet, nothing is done. In the end, we'll go for some poor driver. Poor driver. Let me repeat, poor driver. Who probably was just to move the product from one point to the other. The NPA is charging Ghanaians for a tracking device. The initial tracking device for NPA, which they used to call the NPA tracker, could tell you where the truck is, the product contained in the truck, the volume, the height, volume. You could tell. Then we substituted that good tracking device with what we call telematics. Telematics only tells you the positional, whatever, of the vehicle. It gives you where the vehicle is, where it moved from. But you can't tell what is in there. So yes, you can tell that it's in Tema, it's moved to Akosombo, or it stopped here, it didn't stop here. What was put into the chambers, you can't tell. So whilst there's a good solution, we go around the solution and create a problem so that people can benefit. And then we come back to complain. The drivers, they may be innocent, they may be guilty, but if they want to probe and ask questions around, that whole fictitious criminal enterprise, you'll be able to round up people. Some will be officials of these entities. Some will be outsiders. So there's a bigger problem. We're just being told, oh, we've arrested drivers and they adulterated. Yet you are charging all of us. Every Ghanaian is paying for tracking. 3 pesos. Yet you cannot tell us at what point the products were adulterated, what was added. Then the tracking device is useless completely. If it is just to tell the position of those cars, I just want to know where my car is and not what it's being used for, then I don't even need it. The car owner should have placed trackers so that they can tell where their vehicles are. But once it's MPA sanctioned, we are interested in the content of the trucks, not the positions of the truck. What goes into the truck, what you loaded with, is it ATK? Was it discharged? Has something been done to it? You should be able to tell from the offices of the NPA and even the operators. Unfortunately, we are silent on that. We are only reporting some drivers, some have run away. Why won't they run away when they were only asked to bring product from one point to the other? A criminal enterprise exists. And if the NIB, the CID, the IOCO dug just slightly deeper, if they just went around asking questions, they will get certain answers that will point them to where to solve the problem from.
Okay. All right. Duncan, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I've been speaking with Duncan Amoah, and he's the Executive Secretary of the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers, and he's been my guest on this week's edition of BizTech, and we've been unpacking the oil and gas sector and how pricing will impact on consumers. He's been my guest on this week's edition of BizTech on Ghana Web TV. My name is Marley Aholumega. Thanks for watching.
Thank you, Maulia Holumega, for that eye-opening report. Up next is Biz Headlines. To our very first story, the Bank of Ghana has described World Remit as a fraudulent scheme. The central bank furthered that the money doubling scheme does not reward investors as promised and has also not been given the license to operate in Ghana. In a press statement cited by Ghana Web, it said, Bank of Ghana has identified a money doubling scheme operating in Ghana under the name World Remit. This fraudulent scheme is distinct from the globally renowned fintech World Remit, which is in the business of international fund transfers. This scheme encourages customers to select preferred packages, following which a code is generated by the fraudsters with which they obtain the WhatsApp accounts of their victims for their own purposes. Bank of Ghana states that it has not licensed any entities or individuals engaged in money doubling. The central bank cautioned the public to not participate in this illegal activity to protect their monies. The central bank stressed that individuals and entities that participate in World Remit do so at their own peril. Still on Bank of Ghana, the central bank has cautioned the public against engaging in fraudulent promotion regarding its 64th anniversary celebration. A statement issued by the central bank and cited by Ghana Web said its attention had been drawn to reports of the promotion which was circulating on various social media platforms. The bank is not running a 64th anniversary promotion of any kind. The general public is advised not to subscribe to this fraudulent activity, inviting the public to select the link shared through social media, which is intended to lure users to participate in this promotion. The Bank of Ghana further advised the public to take note and to desist from participating in such fraudulent promotions in the name of the central bank. It said any individual or entity that participates in such or similar scheme does so at their own peril. Now on to fuel prices. The prices of petroleum products are expected to witness an upward adjustment by at least 7% at various pumps from October 16th. This comes after media reports indicated that fuel prices would from Friday, October 15th, be revised, but a spokesperson for the oil marketing company said the fuel prices revision is expected to take place at the start of the next pricing window. Kweku Ajimandria, in an interaction with the media, said, "We are just ending the current price window on 15th October and starts on 16th of October. To confirm this move, Mohammed Abdul Kudus, communications manager at the National Petroleum Authority, said, "We at the NPA are looking at the next pricing window, that is from 16th October this Saturday." Meanwhile, President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo on Monday, October 11th, granted approval to zero the price stabilization and recovery levies on petrol, diesel, and LPG for a period of 2 months. The move is expected to cushion consumers from the increasing hikes in prices of petroleum products. For a fourth consecutive month, consumer inflation in the month of September 2021 rose to 10.6%, exceeding the central bank's medium-term target of 8 to 10%. The increase, although anticipated by the market, is the highest in the last 14 months of COVID-19 since August 2020, when the indicator stood at 11.5%. Data released by the Ghana Statistical Service shows that after inflation had slowed down to 7.5% in May 2021 from 10.3% in February 2021, the indicator had persistently risen to its current level, largely on the back of increasing non-food inflation. To our last story, the Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo-led government has revealed its intention to once again submit to Parliament a restructured agreement with regards to the Ejapa royalties transaction. The deal earlier hit a snag after it was approved by Parliament, but was withdrawn following concerns raised by a number of civil society organizations and a section of the public over the transparency of the agreement. But Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta recently disclosed that the Attorney General had already reviewed a restructured deal and repackaged it to ensure the country benefits from the deal. He said, "The Attorney General has looked at it, and we have had a few stakeholder meetings, and I think the new board should be energized to review that and then go through the parliamentary process." That's all for today's edition of BizTech on Ghana Web TV. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at the Ghana Web, on YouTube, Ghana Web TV. Do well to log on to www.ghanaweb.com for more stories. I am Ernestina Sewa Asante. Do have a lovely weekend.